Hi there, Megan Thompson with Megan Thompson Coaching. And today we're going to cover what to do if your highly sensitive child or teen will not talk to you about their emotions. Okay, so here at MTC, we help parents of highly sensitive kids and teens break out of the meltdown shutdown cycle. What is that, you say? That is when your child is losing their mind and hitting, kicking, throwing things, body on the floor, running away, refusing, shutting down, and yelling, etc. Isolating themselves and refusing to follow through on not only your directions, but also transition from one activity to the next, or struggling significantly with any of these behaviors at home, at school, or both. And that cycle is something that is necessary for you to be paying attention to as a parent, right? If you're a parent of a highly sensitive kid or teen. And breaking out of this pattern requires multiple steps because there's a lot of deep-rooted needs that your child has that need to be reorganized for them to adjust the behavior. Okay, so one thing that we hear from parents is that they have tried over and over again to talk to their kid about emotions to break out of this pattern, right? And it's critical that your child is able to name their emotions, express them effectively, safely, in order to break out of the meltdown cycle. And if your child's struggling or your teen's struggling to talk to you about emotions, they won't even do it, la, 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 ears plugged, even to the point where, they're treating it like the dreaded F word, feelings. They have a reaction as if you're cursing at them when you name it. And so as a parent, when this is happening, you can feel pretty stuck, right? Not just stuck, lost, confused, frustrated, exhausted, on top of dealing with the emotional spiral of those meltdowns too. And so what's one thing that you might be doing? You might be deciding that your child needs to be quizzed by these emotions. You might be trying to ask questions about emotions all day long. You might try to expose your child to emotion-laden books and to try to turn this around. You might try to support your child in managing and sharing their emotions by talking about different TV shows that share emotions. You might be trying to model emotion communication, or just use playful means, emotion games, activities, etc. And if all of these tactics start to fall flat with your child, they are leaving the room, they're shutting down, they're struggling to participate in any of these experiences, then for you as a parent, this can feel quite frustrating, quite worrisome, and you might be worried about whether or not you are the one to teach your child about emotions in the first place, right? Especially if you are a professional in the field. This can be relevant whether you're not a professional in the field or if you are, but I want to add that extra layer, right? Because we have so many parents who work with us who are licensed mental health providers, or they are teachers, or in the medical field, doctors, nurses, physical therapists who understand the importance of emotional communication, speech language pathologists, etc. So these are things that for you it might feel like they're in your wheelhouse. You might really struggle with your own child who is refusing to participate in these activities that you use all the time with clients, right? Or with your students. And so when we think about that big shift, one of the things you might worry is, well, maybe because my success is typically in my career, because I'm not the child's parent whom I'm working with. Maybe that's true for my kid. Maybe my kid needs to work with somebody else. Maybe your child is saying things like, Mom, stop therapizing me, stop treating me like one of your students. something like that, right? That might be part of the issue that your child is highlighting and worried that they are, that you're not acting like their parent in this dynamic. And that's impacting their receptivity to using some of the skills that you're trying to teach them. It is important to notice that might be true, right? That could be relevant for your kid, that's adding to their refusal response in this dynamic with you. But it is still important to notice the concept of vantage sensitivity and the fact that highly sensitive kids need to change their behavior through the parent-child relationship. Okay, so it's really important that we cover this, because a lot of parents will say, my kid just won't talk to me when I cover emotions. They must need to talk to somebody else. I must need to set my kid up with, their favorite aunt to have these conversations, or it's going to be enough if they talk about it in school with their teacher, or if they have a lunch bunch that they go to, or it's going to be enough if I send my kid to therapy once a week to get their emotions out. This will definitely break us out of the cycle. That will solve the problem. And it's important for you to notice that if you're parenting a highly sensitive kid who's having meltdowns on a daily, multiple times a day, or multiple times a week basis, and I say meltdowns, that same thing for outbursts, yelling, kicking, screaming, same thing for refusals, multiple times a day, multiple times a week, or anywhere in between. And then also for isolating. They are running up to their room, slamming the door, staying stuck, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to engage with you. If your child's highly sensitive and you see any of these behavior patterns, you are the change agent for your child. That means that the relationship with you is what is going to support your child in changing that dynamic. It's really, really important that you follow the science on that, not your worry, which is that you're inadequate to teach them, or that you're not equipped, or that your child just won't relate to you. And I want to talk about this because what we see often, one of the key reasons that this is happening is because your delivery of these emotional skills is off, okay? Highly sensitive kids, just like highly sensitive adults, really hang on to details. And details include semantics. Semantics are how you say what you're trying to say. And so if you're delivering the experience of talking about emotions in a way that doesn't actually hit the nail on the head for your highly sensitive child, then they can, move into the black and white thinking that anxiety has them stuck in, which is that, mom just can't help me. And then they start to, raise the intensity anytime you bring this up. Okay? It's really important that the way that you talk about emotions is covered. We're going to talk about the 3 C's in managing this today. Stay tuned. But before we address this, we have to break down the myth that you're not the one to teach your kid. Okay, well, I've been doing this for over 10 years, and so have many of my colleagues here in the coaching practice here. We've been supporting parents and breaking out of this pattern every which way to Sunday. And when we were doing this, and earlier in our careers, we were trying to serve clients through our individual mental health practices. We were seeing the child in the session and then sending them on their merry way to, manage and be aware of their emotions in their environment, to include in the home, talking to the parents, once a month or something like that, and update the parents on how the kid's doing. The child, highly sensitive children, were not changing their major behaviors with that approach. Okay, so this is years of observation and using the traditional approach, which does not work for highly sensitive kids. Okay, highly sensitive kids make out 1 out of every 5 kids in the world. Okay, 1 out of every 5 people is highly sensitive, but 1 out of every 2 people end up in the mental health world. That means that the mental health supports that are using the approach for non-highly sensitive children are not moving the needle. It's not working, okay? And what gets kids into therapy, the reasons why kids come to therapy means that something's not working in the environment. Something's not working in the school, something's not working in the community, something's not working at home, which is what's leading to kids going into therapy in the first place at a much more pervasive rate than their non-highly sensitive peers, right? We would be looking at 1 out of every 5 kids in therapy is highly sensitive if the proportions were equal, but they're not. So what happens? That means we need to be looking at how we're parenting kids who are highly sensitive differently. We need to be looking at how we're supporting them in the school settings, and we need to be looking at how we're advocating for them in the community. All of those three components, though, have to be through the parent. As a parent, you are your child's most trusted relationship. Even if your child is responding to you in a way that makes you second guess that trust, that dynamic in your household, you are the most powerful person in the household to shift that dynamic. And that dynamic has to improve in its level of positive relationships and gauging the level of happiness, clarity, feelings of being understood, closeness. All of those components need to increase. Your child needs to feel closer, needs to feel happier, needs to feel more emotionally in control in their house and in support, and by being supported by their parent, in order for their skills to generalize effectively in the school and generalize effectively in the community. Okay, extracurriculars, church, lessons, scouts, sports, etc. Okay, so since we know that that's true for all of the research, Linehan's research, Porges' research, Elaine Aron's research, and everybody in between. Okay, I'm not going to cite all of that today because we only have so much time for you to be focusing on it. You just need to trust that countless research since the 1960s. I now need to stipulate that since the 1960s has been definitive. Parents need to shift their dynamic with highly sensitive kids. All right, in order to shift this in order to shift this display of behavior and break out of the meltdown cycle. Think about it. If the environment, the society we live in, okay, parenting highly sensitive kids in the first world society, all right, the way we're parenting, the way we're teaching, the way we are treating highly sensitive kids is leading to half of the child population being full of that go to therapy, being full of highly sensitive kids. That means that we can't be trusting the mental health world and how it's operating right now, the school world and how it's operating right now, and the community world and how it's operating right now to be solving the problem for our highly sensitive kids that's landing them in therapy at a much rapid rate in the first place. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here on today's show? What's important to understand is that if all of these environmental pockets, home, school, and community, are operating at a place that's sending highly sensitive kids to therapy at a much faster rate, much higher rate, then we can't look to outside influences like school and mental health professionals and outside of the home and the community supports as ways to solve this problem, because it's what's creating the problem in the first place. The societal connections to how we parent towards the general population is keeping your kid, who is not a general population kid, a minority, 1 out of every 5, 20%, that's a minority. It's not going to work for your sensitive kid because they're a minority in the population. Okay, so if the professionals or the setting that you're working at, all of those settings, they're group settings, right? They're even doing individual therapy. I was learning how to do this to serve as many kids as possible with the most success. That means that the outliers weren't, I wasn't getting specialized training in how to serve the outliers as part of my basic mental health training. I needed to learn that over the years of identifying sensitive kids in my practice and then figuring out this stuff that you teach me is going to work for the regularly, typically anxious kid or the typically depressed kid or the traumatized child isn't working for children who are highly sensitive. There's missing gaps here, okay? That's true for highly sensitive children, highly sensitive adults, highly sensitive adolescents. It's the same pattern no matter the kid's age and no matter the highly sensitive person's age. And so highly sensitive adults who end up with chronic suicidality, chronic self-harm, the most significant mental health needs, end up with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, and they have the least success rate in mental health when traditional mental health approaches are taken for that population. So what we have to do is we have to backtrack all the way down to childhood and look at, well, if highly sensitive adults with chronic suicidality and self-harm who are accessing typical mental health supports in adulthood have the least effective outcomes from that service, what are we doing early when those kids are caught early in the mental health system that is keeping them on the same path that ends up, that has them end up with poor outcomes as adults, right? We have to solve this earlier. So as a child therapist, and in this dynamic, what I noticed in my private practice career was that there's a key component missing, and this is the parent-child relationship and an awareness of the personality trait to shift the dynamic in the home. So for you as a parent, you need to be learning through to manage the emotional skill sets for your child, and then teaching that to your child. Your child cannot learn them themselves and then teach them to you, to demonstrate them to you, and then you say, oh, I know deep breathing helps my kid. Let me help them do it more, right? You can't be having your kid be the messenger in this dynamic, because it's the same problem that we see with highly sensitive adults with chronic major behaviors. Well, guess what? If you're parenting a highly sensitive kid who has had major behaviors right now and they're 6, why are we using different logic to address the same problem just because of how the child's age? That doesn't work. We've seen this countless times. We've helped hundreds of families break out of this meltdown cycle here at MTC, and I saw hundreds of families in my private practice individually where they were suffering before I learned what was working. So now, solving this problem over and over again through parent coaching and doing this consistently, we know one thing is true. You, as your child's parent, are the change agent for your kid, okay? And the key component here is don't second guess yourself in your effectiveness because your delivery is off. So if you're talking to your child in an ineffective way to try to share emotional management skills, then yeah, your child's not going to respond effectively. But don't make that mean that it's not you who can move the needle, who can shift this dynamic consistently, okay? All right, so this is really important, because when you're trying to find those opportunities to share, if you're not delivering the skills in an effective way, then those opportunities are going to be, you'll feel like you're holding the bag. You'll feel like what you're saying is falling flat. It's also important to look at the opportunity when you are actually trying to share, talk about emotions. If you're trying to talk about emotions when your child's melting down and they're overwhelmed and they're flooded, that's also not going to work. All right, so the timing is off as well. Okay, so we could be the way that you're talking about emotions or the when you're talking about emotions. Two things are missing here. All right, you can't use these as reasons to outsource emotional management skills to somebody else. So what do you need to do? What do you need to do? We're going to talk about the 3 C's to break out of this pattern together today. One of the components to breaking out of this pattern has to include your certainty that you are the one your child needs to learn from. Okay, so this is where mindset support comes in, and personal development psychology on managing how you perceive yourself as the perfect person to support your kid in learning these skills. You are the best and only person to help your kid learning these skills. Everybody else is a bonus. It's icing on the cake, but you're the foundation. Okay, that level of certainty needs to be as solid, as rock solid, as the certainty that you will never drive a car unless your kid is buckled in. Okay, because if you're wishy-washy at all, your child will feed off of that. They're highly sensitive. They read the room. Whether you hear them do that or not, they're feeding off that energy. Okay, so if you're delivering it like, oh, honey, I think we need to. What feeling do you think you're having right now? There's no certainty in that tone of voice. Your child needs to be hearing from you that they observe their emotion is something they need to be focusing on right now. So when we coach our parents, one thing that we often find is the parents are asking questions. Asking questions about emotions at that point. When you ask your child a question, you're indicating to your child that there's an option that they can respond or not. Okay, so when you wouldn't do that when you're putting your kid's seatbelt on. So why are you doing that when you're talking to your child about emotions? When they're about to lose their mind, about to blow their top, emotions are the thing they need to be focusing on. We're not asking questions at this point. We're telling them what they need to be doing, and teaching them about their emotional experiences throughout the day. All right, so you have to be certain about that. And the next thing that you need to be doing, that's the first C here. The second C here is that you need to be consistent. Talking about emotions on a regular basis, not just when your child's losing their mind. Okay. Why? Because highly sensitive kids are ashamed of their big emotions, because they tie their big emotions to their big behaviors. You know your child is losing their mind and then coming back to you to apologize. Wallow. Woe is me. I'm awful. You should just put me in jail. All of these terrible things that your kid is saying about themselves. Heartbreaking stuff, right? That's shame. Child's feeling ashamed. They're feeling guilty. They're feeling worried that they can't control it. And so consistency in emotional conversation, oftentimes parents can think, my kid can't handle it. I can only talk about emotions like once a week. Otherwise, my kid's going to, we're having the conversation about the dreaded F word, feelings. My kid's on fire when we talk about this stuff. I can't even handle my kid's response to this, let alone my kid handling their response to this. So let's just talk about it like on Tuesdays when they have no other activities. 7 days is an eternity for a child. And this is true for children, right? Younger children, 4, 5, 6, 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Think about it. When you were a teenager and you were calling your love interest, or you were writing past the notes back and forth, and they didn't pass that note back to you in under 10 minutes, time stretches to infinity and beyond, right? Because children, youth, live in the here and now. Right now is all I can focus on. So if I can't get what I need right now, I don't feel safe and in control. And so if you're not talking about emotions frequently, consistently, they can't notice that it's relevant. They can't notice that it's necessary. They can't notice that it's reliable. And you're not going to get enough data to learn what works and what doesn't work with your child. Okay, so if you find yourself, I talk about this with our clients, if you find yourself playing double dutch, like, I don't know when I should jump in, right? That jump rope game. You're worried about getting tripped up, not knowing when your in is, or waiting for your child to let you in, then you're falling back on C number 1, which is the be certain, right? Because you're letting your child lead, which is not certain. That doesn't demonstrate certainty and leadership in the home. And then secondly, you're not consistent because your kid's not going to be consistent in how they reach out when they don't have skills to reach out effectively. Okay, so really important that you're consistent. The next one and last one is that you need to be curious. You need to be curious about how you're discussing emotions with your child. You need to be learning about tracking how your child responds when you say things one way, when you say things another way, observing patterns, paying attention to when your child's capable of talking about emotions, when your child needs to talk about emotions but refuses. And when you're stuck in the meltdown cycle, what can be really, really difficult is staying curious, because the opposite of curiosity is judgment, right? And when you're fearful of the day and you're stuck in frozen mode, or you're stuck in worry, or you're stuck in fight, like this is aggravating and you're angry a lot of the time, these are all symptoms of the meltdown cycle. So there's no judgment here. We see this all the time. You're often stuck in judgment too, because your brain is focused on find the danger, stay safe, find the danger. Okay, so you've got tunnel vision going here. That's judgment. So you need to be able to calm yourself regularly, consistently. There's my second C here again. enough to tell yourself that you're not in danger. Now, if your child is hitting you, kicking you, scratching you, drawing blood, breaking things, it makes sense that it's hard to find a sense of safety. This is when you need professional support. Because if you as a parent don't feel safe in your own home, there's no way you're going to be able to lead your kid into feeling safe in your own home. And you can't create safety from fight. All right. So a sense of safety means that you're not in your fight, flight, freeze part of the brain, the deep limbic system. Okay. Your amygdala is not on fire saying, danger, 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 there's a bear in my house. Which means you can't be in high authority, my way or the highway mode. People who are in high authority, my way or the highway mode are focused on control. That's not safety when you're focused on control. That's not, you're calm, cool, and collected. That is different than keeping it together, trying not to yell, and telling somebody what to do and they need to respond to you in lockstep or else. That is not calm. That is not cool. That is not collected. That is fight brain trying not to fight. Okay, different. Different. That's self-restraint on the fight brain, right? So it's important to understand that when you're curious, you can negotiate with your kid in a way that feels like compromise rather than threats, right? Because negotiation can feel like, if you don't do this right now, then I will take away this. Your child might say, well, can I have 5 more minutes until you take away this? No, I won't. You ready to do it now? Okay, great. There's no negotiation in that. There's no curiosity in that, figuring out why your child needs 5 more minutes either. So in that situation, you're judging that you're the one in charge, your child's out of control, and they're not capable of being in control. You need to be in control. On the other end, my child's out of control. I have no flipping clue what to do. Sorry. Ooh, that was close. And this is going to heck in a handbasket really quickly, so I might as well not even try. Or my kid can't handle it, so let me just go ahead and give in. That also is not curious. How do we make this work is curiosity. You have to be calm in order to do that. You can't be in your own flight response. Let's just make this go away. You can't be in your own fight response. Let me tell you what to do because I can't handle you doing anything other than what I need you to do right this minute. Right? Them's fighting words. You might not be threatening your kid, but your demeanor is. Okay. So let's make sure we're covering what breaks out, right? The 3 things we talked about: you need to be certain, you need to be consistent, you need to be curious. And to do that, you have to be playful. You have to be calm. You have to be regulated yourself in order for your child to mimic your own regulation with them. Doing that consistently, you're tapping into the scientific reaction of co-regulation. Your child's brain is going to mimic your calm, and then they will be able to follow through on your instructions. Highly sensitive people have more active mirror neurons. So when you are calm, your child will mimic that calm. They will get the signal that safety is available. Not without skill set, though. Okay, you can't fake calm. Your child's going to read that. Okay, their brain is much more advanced than that. Okay, so what do we do to break it out of it, right? We just talked about all of your assumptions, and then those are not going to work. You have to change the way you see your child. You have to change the way that you're teaching your child as well. We've covered that a lot today. We talked about it in a way that's not going to be shameful, right? Teaching your child that they're capable. Otherwise, if you're demonstrating to them that they're not capable, that you will perpetuate and add to their shame response. Being highly sensitive, they're going to have a shame response whether you like it or not. If they're not capable of managing their shame regularly and dissipating that, and certain parenting tactics will add shame to the equation. And so you have to make sure you don't do that. It's going to make your child feel worse and feel like they can't do it, and they'll never be able to do it if they feel like they can't. And then you need to be able to be consistent in managing routines and the environment, so that they can feel calm and collected on a regular basis, because there's reliable events happening in the day and during the week, etc. Doing that consistently breaks you out of the pattern. If you're struggling with that, or you need more help on the how, then definitely at that point would be a clear need for professional help. Because if your child is engaging in major life-threatening behaviors, aggression, consistent, hurting themselves, hurting you, breaking stuff in the house, that's not something that you can handle on your own. It's gotten to the point where you need professional support for troubleshooting, accountability, because consistency is hard, right? So if your kid's having meltdowns once a month, what I talked about is going to be, something that you could probably implement by yourself. But if your kid's having these major behaviors multiple times a day, multiple times a week, it's unrealistic to expect yourself to stay consistent when you're overwhelmed. I mean, that's overwhelming for anybody. So get support, right? Get support. Break out of the pattern faster. You deserve it. You deserve to have a happy life. Your child deserves to have a happy life. And you deserve to have a peaceful existence so that you can thrive in life. We were not put on this earth to be miserable. Right? So if you want our help to get that done, then book a call with our team. We'll talk to you about how that works. We'll need to figure out where you're stuck, what you're struggling with, what challenges and stressors are going on in your life, and then also what goals you have for your family and then also for your children. And if the challenges that are in the way of you reaching your goals are something that we help our clients with, and we know how to help you, then we'll tell you how that works. For sure, and we'll walk you through exactly how to make that happen. And to work with us, you can do that on the very same phone call. Okay, so you're going to book a conversation with us at meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk. It's free. And if there's a conversation that you need to have with us about some other means of support, things are perhaps more appropriately handled with a different level of support, we'll tell you that. Or if your needs are not what we solve, then we'll tell you that too. We'll point you in that direction. We'll tell you how to get started with somebody else, how to find somebody else that solves a problem that we don't solve, so that you're in the right place. No matter what, by the end of the conversation, you'll know who is there to help you and what the right next steps are. And again, like I said, if we're a fit, then you can get started right away, because, why wait? You've already been struggling long enough. meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk or meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk if you're parenting a teen ages 14 and up in high school. Okay, so if your kid's 14 and in 8th grade, then you want to book the call without your kid. But if your kid's in high school, we want to bring your teen to the call, because they need to start to take ownership of some of their behaviors and how they follow through. And communication is much more effective when coaching is done with both teen and parent together. So we do that because research demonstrates that's when the age shifts enough and the maturity shifts enough and the environment shifts enough. Pressure's really on for the teen to start to take ownership. And they need to be at the helm of that, whether compared to when parents are at the helm. Okay, so happy to have that conversation with you. We look forward to it. And have a great day. Talk to you soon.